How did you take the news when the gynae told you that she had endometriosis?
I mean, I was okay at the time until I started showing severe symptoms. I'm talking about now the weight fluctuations, the endo belly, where I would look as if I'm 4 or 5 months pregnant, the nausea, the brain fog. I would so easily forget stuff, and it was so shocking. Like, I did not know it was connected to all of this. I was fatigued, and I'm someone that has the most energy, but I was always tired, had a short circuit. I just didn't want a lot of people around me.
Welcome back to yet another episode of Sex Talks Podcast with me, your host, Selma Ndasilohenda Iyambo. As always, I'm super excited to be here with you, and I'm beyond grateful that you chose Sex Talks Podcast once again. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Sex Talks Podcast family. Here, we are all about creating an informed and educated society of young people who can openly have conversations about their personal experiences while hearing from experts in the field. We are recording yet another episode live from the B3 Youth Campus thanks to our collaboration with the B3 Studios under the One Economy Foundation. You can find this youth-friendly space at the Windhoek Multipurpose Youth Center or online at B3 Namibia. And if ever you find yourself nearby or in Katutura, please do come say hi. We love to see you and hear from you. Now, today's episode is one that is very personal, raw, and powerful. We are talking about endometriosis, a condition that affects 1 in 10 people with uteruses globally, but yet it's still widely misunderstood, often misdiagnosed, and always brushed off as it's just bad period cramps. Now, joining me in studio is Menethe Nawes, a 28-year-old sport nutritionist, Namibia Hockey Development Coordinator, and the vice chairman for the Namibia Rugby Women's Committee. She's been living with endometriosis since the age of 14. Her journey is one that includes many years of pain, depression, misdiagnosis, weight fluctuations, a brain cyst diagnosis, and a journey of finding herself both mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Menethe, thank you so much for considering Sex Talks Podcast as a platform where you can be able to share your story with us. How are you doing this morning?
First of all, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here. I'm a bit nervous to talk about this out in the public for the first time, but thank you for having me.
I'm really honored and privileged that you chose us and you're willing to walk this journey with us. Now, let's start from the beginning. Can you take us back to when you were 14 and what were some of the early symptoms that you started experiencing?
Okay. So I wasn't diagnosed at the age of 14, but I did start having severe symptoms. At the age of 14, I remember I was in grade 8, grade 9 going on 15. And I remember I would have the worst period cramps where my mom would have to pick me up from school sometimes. I would have the worst pain in my legs, tingling, it's numb, fatigue, brain fog. It was very unclear, and at that age, people always just say, it's just period pains, calm down. Like, why are you acting like this? I remember I would have to sometimes skip some classes just to go lay in the sick bay till I feel better. Yeah.
Now, at 14, was this when you started having your periods, or was it like a few years after?
It was about 2 years after I started having my first period when I was in grade 7. And it was about 2 years after.
Okay. Now, at that point now, when you started now having to take off some time in the laying in bed because you weren't feeling so well, did you consider this type of pain as normal? What were some of the reactions from your teachers and your classmates?
I just thought it's normal. I thought, some people have it worse and some people just don't have it at all. My best friend at the time never experienced pain, period cramps all throughout our high school career. And for me, I was so envious of her because we all knew if it's that time of the month, best believe this girl's going to skip a few classes.
So technically your classmates knew when you're on your periods.
Yeah, they knew because it was always bad. I would throw up, I would have dizzy spells. Yeah.
Wow. I think we really take things for granted, maybe, because I think in high school, periods weren't really something that was major for me. Yes, I'd have a few mood swings here and there, but it wasn't really that severe. And come to think of it, one of our classmates in high school actually used to lie on chairs and roll on the floor. Like, it was so bad.
Yeah.
Yo. Now, how long did it take before you were officially diagnosed with endometriosis, and what was the process like for you?
Well, I remember 2019. I was at work and I had so much pain in my belly, but I was not on my period. And I realized that I'm starting to bloat, like really bad. I thought it's probably like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome or something, from eating too much gluten, or I don't know. I just thought about a lot of stuff. And I remember messaging a friend of mine and I sent her a photo and she said, "That's not normal. You look pregnant." And I brushed it off because I think it passed after a few hours. And then I started noticing a pattern where at least 3-4 times a week, I would get this bloating. I wake up and I was pretty fit. I was pretty like slim at the time. And for me to wake up in the morning and then I just have this, what we call endo belly now, it was so confusing. So I eventually ended up going to the doctor, and he said to me that I'll need to see a gynecologist specialist. And I remember it was so scary because, you know, that whole process of having to deal with a gynecologist, it's kind of, it's very invading. So I went through that whole process, and I think about 2 weeks later, they did tell me that I have endometriosis. I've always, because of the research that I've done over the years, I've always thought it might be endometriosis or adenomyosis is another one. And I thought to myself, maybe it's really not that bad. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, because you know how our elders always tell us, we all had period when we were young. We still had to do stuff. We still had to do chores. My mom would actually always tell me that you just want to get out of the chores. That's why when you're on your period, you always want to be in bed. Yeah.
Wow. How did you take the news when the gyna told you that she had endometriosis?
I mean, I was okay at the time until I started showing severe symptoms. I was okay at the time. I was training. I was eating healthy. I was getting enough rest. And I believe that it was easy to navigate at the time, because it was not early stages, but I've been living with it for so long. It was a norm.
How old were you at the time when you were diagnosed?
20. I think I was 22.
22,
if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. Now, how was it like living with this constant pain? Did it somehow affect your daily routine and how you saw yourself as a person?
It did. I was always moody, that I can promise you. I was a very angry person. Yeah, I was always moody. Sorry.
It's okay.
I think, like I said earlier, because the pain was always there, I thought it's normal until such a time where severe symptoms started showing. And I'm talking about now the weight fluctuations, the endo belly, where I would look as if I'm 4 or 5 months pregnant, the nausea, the brain fog. I would so easily forget stuff, and it was so shocking. Like, I did not know it was connected to all of this. I was fatigued, and I'm someone that has the most energy, but I was always tired, had a short circuit. I just didn't want a lot of people around me. Yeah.
Oh. Now let's speak about you experiencing what we call now endo belly, and now the weight fluctuation from 67 to 89 kilograms, and saying that you say that you are always now the slim young woman. That's a huge physical change. How did that affect, or how did you deal with that, and how did others around you react to now from just weight change all of a sudden within a short time frame?
I mean, I wasn't slim, but I was fit, and I was quite lean, and it was a shock. It came as a shock to me, because it happened so fast. And I was a personal trainer, and where I started noticing that when I exercise, I immediately get a flare up. I get an endo belly flare up. I thought at the time maybe it's because I would train at Body 20, where we would do EMS training. So then I stopped the EMS training and I started doing CrossFit. And I realized it's still not getting better. I just kept gaining weight. I was eating healthy. And obviously with my knowledge of personal training and of nutrition and dieting, I immediately thought hormonal imbalance. I went back to the doctor and they confirmed it. And I had to make peace with the fact that my weight's going to be fluctuating the whole time. The difficult part was people coming to you and asking, girl, you've gained weight. What's going on?
Are you pregnant?
Yeah, are you pregnant? And I mean, these are people that you don't necessarily have a relationship with, but they've probably always looked up to you in the sense of fitness and me taking care of my body. So for them, it also came as a shock, and it was difficult to explain to them what was happening to my body, because I realized that I kept suppressing my true emotions about how I felt about my body changing and dealing with endometriosis. Yeah,
I'm glad how you mentioned that now you were suppressing your emotions. Now let's talk about your mental health. When did you realize that the physical pain and how your body was reacting to endometriosis was affecting your emotional well-being?
Yeah. I'd always been obedient when it comes to taking care of my body, and I tried as much as possible to do the right thing, if I should say so. I'd completely changed my life. I recommitted my life to God. I started serving in church, and I was doing well. And then I realized I was going back into patterns of drinking, and I realized I was going back into patterns of drinking and like sleeping with guys, and I immediately realized that I'm acting from a place of I'm just spiraling out of control, and I had to sit with myself and be honest with myself about a lot of the stuff that's happening in my life. I had to be honest with how this is affecting me. And because my body was changing so much, I struggled to see myself the way God sees me, because I'd put my identity in my fitness and my job and how good I look and how much of an influence I can be to someone else who also wants a nice body. And I'm scaled away from finding my identity or resting in my identity in Christ, and I moved back into wanting approval from men, wanting approval from the world outside, just for someone to say, hey, you still look good, or and I would think that a guy wanting me sexually would be a way of confirming that, okay, my body is still okay, when in actual fact that was not the case. The more I did that, the more I gave little pieces of myself I didn't realize I was giving away, because I already haven't dealt with a lot of the emotions, and I haven't dealt with how I felt about this whole situation, and I started giving away those broken pieces instead of just letting God be the one to mend it.
Wow. It was quite a very emotional story. Now, throughout this whole journey that you described, was there ever a point where you felt like giving up? How did you manage your depression during that time?
Yeah. Obviously we all have external stuff happening, and it's one thing on top of the other. And And I didn't realize how depressed I was until people would start invalidating when I start talking about my emotions. And I realized, wow, I'm broken, I'm hurting. And I think that at some point I just decided I'm done. I felt like I was mad at God. I felt like I was obedient and I was serving him faithfully. And what I thought like the fruits of my obedience was going to look like is not what it was. And I think after that I spiraled out of control, and I just decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm already someone who's so hard on myself, number one. And secondly, I struggle to express myself. And it was hard to talk to my family at the time about what I was going through, because I myself didn't understand where to place my emotions. So, not that I was alone, because I didn't have to be. I do have people who love me and who really wanted to be there for me, but I couldn't even sit with myself. So how do I sit with someone and talk about how I feel, what I'm going through, if I can't even put it in words myself? Yeah.
Now, during this whole time, were you still going to school, or were you working on a full-time basis?
I dropped out of school twice, mind you. And then I just went into full-time working. It did affect like my work. I remember closer to the end of me actually resigning from the job that I was at the time, where I was really struggling with the symptoms and the flare-ups. I had to make a decision to tell my boss, listen, I can't, I'm taking up space of someone that could do better. I constantly had to get off from work. Some mornings I wouldn't be able to get up. And I love people, and for me, helping people and helping them be better and helping them be the best versions of themselves is something that I really am so passionate about. So me being a personal trainer was not just about the body, it was about wellness, it was about your mental and emotional well-being. And I was not in a headspace where I could be that for anyone at work at the time. And my boss, I would have to call my boss almost 3 times a week from work and say, I can't do this, I have to go home. There would be times where one of my colleagues would have to drop me at home because I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. Or I would just sleep in one of the changing rooms because I'm in so much pain. And it really affected my work, in that sense.
Okay, now, with the medication that you were given, was that helping? Or how did that whole journey go? As much as like the pain is something that you've been dealing with most of your life, how did the medication go? Because I know that based on the stories we've had, often at times it's also misdiagnosed.
Yeah. I remember the first few times I went to the doctor, like I said earlier, I also thought it's IBS. They also just thought it's irritable bowel syndrome. And I was being treated for that, and I was told to get off gluten. I was told to stop eating dairy and like all of these things that could possibly trigger it. And I was basically getting treated for IBS until such a point where the diagnosis was endometriosis, and I had to get on to a hormonal treatment. But many times they put you on birth control and antidepressants as well. I was never a fan of antidepressants because of how it really messes with your gut health. And and I would not take those. And when I would go back to my doctor, he would tell me, you have to take them. But I realized like when I do take them, I am even more moody. I am so irritable. I want to sleep the whole time. I don't want to be around people. I could drink a bottle of wine by myself in my bed. I was just not myself. I was not happy. And with the birth control, I think that also obviously aided to me gaining more weight, because we all respond to it differently. And I did know the side effects of the medication, but after the antidepressants and the birth control, I started noticing like I get like yeast infections much easier, and I was so confused. I was like, what is going on? Before I went back to the doctor, I just stopped taking all the meds. And then I went back and he advised an injection. He advised the Marina coil. I was not open to that. And then he advised an injection, which then I then started taking. The injection controlled the pain much better, because how that works is it kind of suppresses estrogen being produced, and endometriosis feeds off estrogen. So the less estrogen, the idea is that the less the endo flare-ups or the endo growth would be. But it wasn't the case. The older I became, especially in the last 2 years, it's more and more and more. And they said to me, you have to think about surgery. You have to think about start having kids, because this does affect your fertility levels. And those are conversations that, as a 28-year-old who's not married, it's scary, because you immediately start thinking about stuff such as, do I need to get married now? I want to start having kids. It's almost as if you put yourself on a time limit. It's the honest truth that they tell you. However, it's not always the reality for everyone.
Did you ever feel pressure to make all those decisions in one
Yes,
night?
definitely. I did. I mean, I would go into a relationship or getting to know someone with those thoughts at the back of my head already, thinking, is he someone that I can get married to? Is he someone that I can take home to my family? Can I have kids with him? And I would immediately, when I see something that I wouldn't want in the father of my child or whatever, I would just distance myself. And I realized that that's such a wrong approach, because I have to become that person first. And I was not becoming that person because I was so focused on this endometriosis and how much it was consuming me, that, again, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't sit in my Christ identity. I still struggle with it today. And I mean, it's not easy, but I am at a point now where I'm no longer in a rush because I'm dealing with this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your honesty. Now, you spoke about how you aren't so good at articulating yourself to others, and how you now go into romantic relationships with the thought of, can I get married to them? How did this affect the romantic relationships that you had with people over the years?
I mean, apart from external things happening, I think, like I said, I was constantly moody and irritable. I would not know how to communicate. I was always very passive aggressive. I was always very.
Did you ever communicate with your partners as to this is what you're going through?
Yes, I definitely did, but not from the gate. I mean, it's not something that you just trust anyone with. I myself didn't understand it at some point. I remember one of my first relationships out of high school. We would struggle to understand what's happening with my body, and I'd get red patches on my stomach or on my abdomen, and it would be so confusing and so scary. So he did know about it, but it did take a toll on him because I was constantly irritable. I was moody. I was constantly in pain. I didn't want to talk about it. I did not feel the need to always tell him when I'm in pain. And I mean, this is not just in a romantic relationships. It would be with friendships as well, family. Sometimes I would just like isolate myself without noticing that I'm doing that, because I just expect everyone to understand that, listen, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm going to have days like this. Don't take it personal. But no one will know how to be there for me, or no one will know how to respond when I get like that if I don't communicate that, understand?
I came across a video recently on social media of, I think it's a guy from South Africa whose sister was killed. And his question was, my sister was so obedient to God. Where was God in this whole situation while she's getting molested? Now, in your days of struggling and use faith, how did you deal with such, and was this such a question at the back of your head of, where are you in my struggle now, God?
I did have moments where I would ask God that. This was even before the diagnosis. I think we all go through things that force you to sit at the feet of Jesus and force you to have a real conversation with him and say, are you there? Are you not there? What's going on? But there were many moments where I can say the endometriosis, I have this thing where I don't say my endometriosis, I don't claim it, it's not mine. But the endometriosis is a part of what opened a can of worms for me. And I felt like amongst everything that I have been going through, decisions that I've made over the years, this is the last thing that I need. And I remember sitting with God and asking him, what's going on? I mean, I have done the worst things in life. I have been the worst person to other people. But I took God at his word, and I repented, and I served him faithfully, and I built a relationship with him, and bad things kept happening, you know. But the difference is that some of us have that tenacity, and some of us can really just live through the pain and praise God through the pain. And then there are some of us who throw little tantrums like I did. But then I look at the Bible, and I look at all the people in the Bible, and I look at how they respond to the stuff they've gone through. And I look at a man like Job, for example, and he just never complained. And I'm not saying that we can't complain and we can't say that God is not there, but these things do happen. Christianity as a whole started with the crucifixion of Jesus. And I think that is evidence of there will be suffering.
Wow. Yeah. I admire your bravery, I must say that. Now, we're moving towards the end of this episode, and my last question before we move into the fire chat segment is, what advice would you give to any young girl out there that is listening to this conversation that may be diagnosed with endometriosis, might be misdiagnosed, or somebody who is just telling their parents about this pain, but it's brushed off as it's just period cramps, it's normal, you just want to move away from the chores? What advice do you have to them? And I think I'm going to divide this question into two parts. One is, what advice do you have for them? And then the second one is, what advice do you have to parents of young girls that tell them about this experiences? What would you have wished your parents had done differently at that time?
Firstly, always listen to your body. I think our body, it carries us. And if it's telling you something is wrong, then something is wrong. And based off that, I think it's very important to get regular checkups. To the parents, I mean, I can't say I wish my parents had done something differently. That time, endometriosis wasn't really much spoken of. They did try as much as possible to get me the best painkillers, because we thought it was just a really bad pain. At some point, I remember there was a day in high school, my dad actually made me a hot water bottle. And that meant a lot. It's the little things. There's nothing that your family and your parents can do outside of just support you. And I think little things such as listening to your children when they tell you that something's wrong with my body or I'm feeling this, don't take it lightly. It might not be endometriosis, it might be something else. But most of the times when a child says something is wrong, something is wrong.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here once again. I don't know how many times I'm going to keep saying that, because being here, taking up space and telling us about your story, even I'm emotional because, wow, what a brave woman. As we wrap up this episode, we're going to move into the quickfire segment where we're going to give you 3 questions. You can answer with the first thing that comes to mind, or you can elaborate if you do feel the need to. Now, into the segment, your first question is, what is that one myth about endometriosis that you wish people would stop believing?
That you need to get pregnant early, because it's not how it works. It's not like that for everyone. Yeah.
Amazing. Your second question is, what's that one thing you want girls with chronic pain to know?
It's okay to rest. Sleep. I have, the past few weeks, I've had days in the week where I'm just in the room. I'm just sleeping. I'm just resting. I don't have the mental capacity or the emotional capacity to deal with people. It's okay to rest.
I think that's my problem with life in adulting right now, because the show always has to go on. When can I take my days to rest?
I think it's important to realize that without rest, you will not be able to operate at your full capacity. We need to be able to show up our best selves. And especially with a condition like this, it's very difficult to show up as your best self. You're already hard on yourself because you can't do the little things. You are hard on yourself when you have a mental relapse. You are hard on yourself when you're in pain. So the little credit you can give to yourself is that you are able to rest. Because one thing I can say, for a lot of us, we've been operating through the pain. We've just been doing our jobs, doing what we need to, just by the way, because of the pain. But it's not fair to anyone else around you. It's not fair to yourself that you can't show up as your best self.
Now, your last question is, you've mentioned how you're very hard on yourself, right? To any girl or any other person who's consistently very hard on themselves, but they face both physical and mental battles as well as the emotional ones, what advice do you have for them today?
Just having a little grace with yourself. Definitely. It's not easy. And if they are in a position to speak to a therapist or to anyone they trust, because endometriosis is not something that you can deal with by yourself. Because people sometimes won't understand why you act the way you act. People won't understand why you isolate yourself. And it's not fair to you that people don't have access to you or people can't be there for you. people need to be there for you. You need people to get through this. So definitely having grace with yourself and just allowing people to love on you.
Wow. With that being said, we've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You've shown us what it means to fight for your body, your mind, and your peace. And your journey is not just one of survival, but is one of incredible strength and hope. And to our listeners, if your pain is dismissed, if your body feels unfamiliar, and you're feeling overwhelmed and you need somebody to speak to, you're not alone. Please do feel free to come to the BV Youth Campus, or you can contact us online or on our telephone number, which we'll put in the captions, as well as across our various social media platforms as Sex Talks Podcast. Now, it's okay for you to speak up, for you to ask questions, and never stop seeking answers. You deserve the care, the support, and the compassion that you can get in this life. So, with that being said, amigos, adios.